Hey, what's the deal? It's your boy Tag from Pro Wrestling Tag, you know what I mean? As of this recording, it is 4:53 p.m., February 1st, 2025, you know what I mean? This is the second video of the day and the first discussion video of the day. I got another discussion video I'm going to pull tonight. You know what I mean? I'm actually shaving my face. Shaving. You know what I mean? That's what Lord Hondo's mom does every time, like, before she sees me. You know what I mean? Like, she likes to shave a kitty cat before I smash that. Now, I mean, speaking of that pussy ass nigga, where you at, nigga? Where you at, you bitch ass nigga? Faggot ass nigga. Anyway, right now, at the same time, I'm watching running. I'm watching track and field. Like, you know what? So I'm watching track and field on NBC. And they're actually doing that at a place in Washington Heights that I didn't even know. Like, they have, there's an armory in Washington Heights. Now, I mean, I hate Washington Heights. Like, I am not a fan of Washington Heights. Like, there are two places in New York City that I do not fuck with. I mean, actually, a few places, but the main two that I know I don't really fuck with, you know what I mean, is Washington Heights is one of them, because the energy there is, you know what I'm saying, it's very murky, bro. It's very murky. Like, I don't know, like, Dominicans I don't know, man. Like, I don't fuck with Dominicans like that. You know what I mean? I'm not a fan of Dominicans like that. I'm sorry. I speak the truth. You know what I mean? The other place that I don't feel safe in New York, believe it or not, is fucking Howard Beach. You know what I mean? I don't feel safe. I went out there once. Nothing happened to me, but there's just an eerie feeling. I don't know. Anyway, this video is not about that. You know what I mean? This video is about, a topic I wanted to bring up, for my discussion on Sundays, because, when WCW was owned by the Turner, when they were owned by Turner, right, which is now Warner Bros. Discovery, you know what I mean, who is owned by Netflix. Turner were making decisions there that were kind of like, they were the ones that made certain decisions since they owned WCW, right? And, you start to see that with other things. You start to see that with, we're all programming on major networks, even WWE, right? Where there are, networks makes decisions depending on what they want to see on programs and such, right? I'm still using WCW for example because, remember, WCW used to have, standards and practices and all this other stuff, right? All this other things. From Turner, right? From Turner and such. And, a network can definitely impact, wrestling decisions and stuff because they view wrestling as like a show, right? They view professional wrestling as, as a TV show, right? Where you have characters and such. And when it's ratings for that show, for that popular show, then they put, they put stock and equity, on characters and such, right? On that character and shit like that. And don't get me wrong, it's good that they do that because, it actually helps wrestlers create a second outlet outside of professional wrestling, right? Because, you got people who become actors and such, right? But it can also be a curse because a network will probably want something that goes against what the promotion is about, right? ECW is a great example. When ECW went to TNN, and I'm shaving too. When ECW went to TNN, right, in 1999, I think 99 to 2000, 1 to 2 years. I think it was 2000. People thought that it was gonna be great because they are they're on a network. You know what I mean? They're on a national network, even though TNN was not a national network at the time. I mean, it was a big network. I mean, it was a step above what the fuck they were doing, right? But remember, TNN, the national network, it wasn't like what you see now. Back then, like their biggest show that they had was fucking, it was and there was a lot of monster races and roller jam and shit, right? They gave a lot of country stuff because it was the national network, right? And they wanted to sink themselves into pro wrestling, and they also had football too, arena football, and they used ECW as a stepping stone to get the World Wrestling Federation, now the WWE, the year after, right? That was 99. They started making decisions for ECW that went against the norm and shit, right? Because networks wants decisions. They want some of their input when it comes down to programming and such, right? The USA Network in the 90s was a little bit more lenient and stuff, when it came down to the Attitude Era and shit like that, because it was bringing in ratings, right? It was bringing in monster ratings. So yeah, they was going to give leeway to the World Wrestling Federation in terms of what they could do and what they can't do, and they also followed that with other programming to build off the success for the night, right? And like I said, going back to WCW, the decisions that Warner Brothers did, Turner did, definitely hurt WCW. It was a little bit more clean, and so it almost looked like WCW can't, they can't reply back, or they couldn't reply back, right? But we all know why, because of practice and standards and practices, right? And so we're seeing that now. You know what I mean? Because look at the brand split, right? Fox, when Fox had SmackDown, right? Fox was basically, to me, Fox kind of failed at, taking advantage of how the professional wrestling works, how the professional wrestling business works, right? So I thought it was a great matchup with WWE and Fox. I mean, it's still there because Triple A. You know what I mean? But, Fox, Fox wanted this, Fox wanted that. Fox wanted to learn about pro wrestling and such. And like I said, it was a whole mess. But again, they still got that relationship with WWE because of Triple A, right? So now Netflix, Netflix might make some decisions on who they want to see on the programming and such. Like, I want to see this guy, I want to see that guy, because it's Netflix. So I guess whoever pays the highest are going to be the ones that is going to get the big stars and such for the ratings, right? And again, it works in a big way because let's look at the CW, right? They see that wrestling works and such. So what happens is, let me see, what show was it that the CW had? I think it was a show called Wildcats. And there was a commercial I seen with the show, and Ricky Sage was there. You know what I mean? So it does bounce back in a way where, where networks make decisions on not only stars and such, or who they see as ratings draws, but also who they see as, potential guests for shows and such, right? So it does have a good balance on both sides. Right? Let me go back to WCW. Cause remember Dinner in the movie? Remember Dinner in the movie? So it's great that, again, that wrestlers and TV networks are able to, to do stuff for each other. And again, it's good promotion. It's really good promotion, right? But when a network goes a little overboard, right, with certain decisions on who they want to see as champion, who they don't want to see as champion, then it becomes a problem. Now, I don't know if I put some more shaving cream on my head. Now, I don't know if the Jey Uso push was because of was because of USA and stuff, or Fox. I don't know. Before the Netflix move. But one would have to assume that, yeah, maybe the networks, they want certain decisions that, they want to get their hands on certain decisions, especially in creative. I mean, remember when there were rumors of NBC Universal possibly buying WWE back like almost 4 years ago? And, and they thought, we thought NBC Universal was the odds-on favorite. They wanted to put in their own people and their own team and such, right? Because again, this is what happens with sitcoms. A network also can, in terms of creative, it can also shape, it can make and break, sitcoms and shit. I'm going to show my age, and I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck. When Different Strokes moved from NBC to ABC, right? Like they kind of changed the whole dynamic. Right? It went, I'm not gonna lie, the way how it looked when they went to ABC was actually not that bad. They updated the house and everything looked a lot better. They replaced one of Arnold's friends with the dude, what's his name? Fucking Jason Harvey, who ironically enough was also a big wrestling fan. And he also wanted to buy WCW with Eric Bischoff. How ironic, right? But remember, Jason Harvey wound up doing the Wonder Years. So all that was for, to add Jason Harvey in there. Another example. When Family Matters moved from ABC to CBS, they definitely changed the big dynamic. Because for many years, Laura hated Steve. Like, she couldn't stand that motherfucker. She couldn't stand, what's his face? Speaking of Laura, it's funny? Like, I now have a big, deeper appreciation for Laura Winslow. Like, the way how she looked and everything, like, with short hair, oh my fucking God. Like I love females I love dark-skinned women with short hair. What? But I'm making a point. When they moved, when the show moved to CBS, all of a sudden, Laura was madly in love with Steve to a point where, she wanted to be with him forever and stuff. So it kind of takes away certain dynamics when a network, pitches in stuff, right? Now, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But the point of the matter is this. Can a network change the dynamic of a professional wrestling show? The answer depends. And I think WWE, they would take in what certain networks say, and they would add it on, but they still run the show in terms of creative and the creative team and who they want to see as champion, who they don't want to see as champion, and so on and so forth. You know what I'm saying? So can a network impact, a wrestling program? It's a possibility. Imagine that AEW was owned by Warner Bros. Discovery, right? Tony Khan would never allow that to happen because Tony Khan is basically like Vince. He wants to be all hands on. God damn, how the fuck do I still got this cough? He wants to be all hands on with everything creative. You know what I mean? And this is why some people, don't want to be there. And this is why some people are held hostage in AEW, like Britt Baker, right? Like Danhausen, like Private Party, like Chris Jericho. Like I said, the fact of the matter is, when it comes down to networks, they'll probably give, some leeway to some stuff with creative. When it comes down to a live show, maybe they'll get like 25%. The rest is for the creative team of that professional wrestling company. Anyway, guys, I'm about to be out. You know what I'm saying? Let me go finish up the rest of my shaving and I'ma holler at y'all. Peace.